Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about The Price of Valor by Django Wexler. And this is the third book in the Shadow Campaigns series. It's the third of 5 books, and it's very much a middle book, a very solid middle book that it honestly doesn't really move the bar in either direction for good or bad. It pretty much just deals with some of the problems created in previous book while gradually setting the stage for what the series is about to become, I guess. So what goes on in this book? At this point, Queen Ricinia rules, and but she finds her power undermined by the very government that's led by her former allies from the previous book, as they tighten their grip, essentially. In a bid to save the Varden Empire from despotic rule, she turns to none other than her good friend Marcus Devore, who continues to remain an absolute bore of a main character. But internal enemies are just the tip of the iceberg as the penitent damned come calling for, on the trails of the Thousand Names. Janus, Ricinia, and their allies are going to have their work cut out for them with this book. So, like I said, this is very much just a solid middle book entry. It doesn't it moves the story along, but it doesn't necessarily. It just adds to it. It doesn't really. It isn't a standout in the series. Then is the best way to put it. So I think the big draw to it is the fact that the way things played out in the previous book, it set the stage for quite a bit of politicking to happen in this book, and that's what we get. We get like conflicting ideologies, we get like questionable motivations, we get a first-hand look at just the way that the greed and conservatism of men who they refuse to release their grip on their way of life, regardless of the cost that it has on the rest of society. That's kind of that's just some of the elements that are played with in this book, yeah, it's kind of like all of that. It's kind of a quagmire that Ricinia has to deal with, and that's just internally within her own empire. She very much has external threats that she also has to address in this one, and that do very much play a big part. Like I said, this is the third book in the series, and at this point, I have to say, Django Wexler he's just systematically failed to make me give a damn when it comes to Marcus Devore. Like the guy. The guy is exhausting to talk about. He's not interesting. He's not fascinating. He's just a bore. He's very two-dimensional. He's pretty much just there because I feel almost as if he's just included in the story because Django wasn't, as much as these books are progressive, Django Wexler wasn't quite brave enough to not make the main character to a straight white guy at the time that these books are being written. Hot take or whatever, but it is what it is. Like there's no other explanation for why this guy is so lackluster. Setting him aside, and the inevitable seed that was laid between him and Ricinia, that oh god. Anyway. Setting him aside, like it's the secondary characters that continue to shine about this series for me. Like once again, for the third straight time, Winter, Ricinia, Janus, they remain some of the more compelling characters to read about in this series. And the whole reason I continue to read this series. They're very interesting. What they get involved in is very interesting. They're just fun to read as compared to whatever Marcus is involved in at any given time. Winter in particular, because now that the situation is changing so much politically and socially, like she's being, you can see her starting to grapple with the decision of how she's going to present herself to the public, and the potential harm and the potential good that she can do if she were to reveal certain aspects of her character. If you read the books, you know exactly what I'm referring to. But yeah, like I refer to the fact that these books are progressive, and you very much see that kind of play a part in like that element of politics play a part in here. Like you very much have like at this point the Varden Empire is similar to the world after World War One, where we had the floodgates were opened and women were allowed to have roles that before wartime weren't traditionally considered appropriate for them, and they were barred from and that kind of thing. So the floodgates were opened. Women have now been accepted into these roles, and now we have now that things are starting to quote unquote settle down, we have the conservative element essentially pushing back and saying that no, this isn't the way to do things, this isn't appropriate, whatever, but having no real good reason as to why it shouldn't why it shouldn't continue the way that it was, despite the fact that everything just proved that there's nothing wrong with this playing out the way it is. So there is that element of the more progressive versus conservative politics not playing out over the course of the story, in addition to all the usual social issues that Django Wexler kind of likes to impregnate the stories with. So there's all of that. All that being said, I think one of the major hook for me when it comes to this book overall is just the mystery element to it. There is a mystery that weaves through the story that we kind of a feel of mystery, I should say. Not a mystery per se, but a feel of mystery that weaves through the story, because there are some questions that Django kind of poses and teases us with, like just things regarding like Janice's motivation, and these kind of things. Like those were the things that really hooked me when it comes to this story. As to how this particular book played out, like it played out pretty much like the previous book. So we have an initial bit of setup, there's some amount of politicking, but then there are also quite a few action sequences and big battles, and this being Flintlock fantasy, like big set piece battles involving gunpowder. In this particular one, not so much like one involving like I'll leave it to you to find out. Actually, I won't spoil that, but yeah, Flintlock is very much a thing here in this book as well. All that being said, we did also get a really good look at the external threat that faces the group, and we get we start to see the glimmers of where the story is going to head next in terms of like the major thread that's going to cap off the series per se. You can say we kind of see that start to build here, and it's honestly it's kind of exciting to see. And it made me excited to just dive straight into the next book, which is going to be interesting as the penultimate book, to see how things play out. And yeah, like despite my utter exhaustion, I should say, with Marcus DeVore, who is normally the main character of this series. Overall, this is still a series that I'm very much enjoying, and I'm looking forward to continue it in the next book, The Guns of Empire. So, yeah, I think honestly that's pretty much all I have to say about this series at this point. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.